Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
The Rockin' Review is thrilled to bring you an incredible, world-renowned singer, songwriter, guitarist, entertainer. You probably know him originally from Peter, Paul, and Mary, but also his incredible solo work. It is Noel Paul Stookey. Noel, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, gee, I feel like I should scuff my foot in the sand and say, "Aw, shucks," after an intro like that. Thank you for having me, Eric. It's nice.
You know what? I barely scratched the surface on the body of work you've done. And what so impressed me, Noel, is that the new album that you released, and I was listening to it last night, and, you continue your musical activism and always in a positive way, just like you did back with Peter, Paul, and Mary. But with the new album, Just Causes, each one of these songs could almost be an album unto itself. You know what I mean? And kind of tell us about this to where each song also represents a different cause.
Yeah, I've always felt that music is like it says in the song, "Not That Kind of Music," is more about the message and less about the style. But that doesn't mean that I've shied away from doing blues or shied away from doing touches of rock. So I've enjoyed a variety of styles, and it almost surprised me, honestly, Eric, to go back and look at this catalog that's like 50 years old and realize that that in my attempt to address a current concern that we share as humanity,
right,
and tracing it through these 50 years, I had some pretty specific things to talk about. Whether it was reflecting on the Holocaust, whether it was looking at El Salvador again, whether it was, or in fact, I think a perfect example is maybe America the Beautiful, where I realize everybody knows the first verse. Everybody sings the first verse. But then even at Super Bowls and stuff like that, when it comes to doing the second verse, maybe we'll just do an instrumental and then we'll do the first verse again. So I thought, well, why is that? And I thought, well, because, alabaster cities gleaming and pilgrims' feet plodding maybe is not contemporary enough. And what is the duty of folk music, but in fact to stay in tune and at one with the world in which we live. So
right,
to make it more relevant, I spoke about, the indigenous peoples and the immigrants and the slaves, that we're all a part of this country and that we should listen to our forebears' knowledge, I've seen it mentioned a lot lately, particularly because of the voting laws now in Georgia and some of the attempts to roll back the ease with which people can vote. That democracy is being challenged, and the authors of this Constitution made sure that every person was equal, and so I thought that was an important thing to enter back into the America the Beautiful thought. The whole album is filled with topics that probably had their relevance and then, surprisingly enough, reemerge as being relevant again.
They seem so timely. I mean, and once again, your music, and I so enjoyed, your early music, your solo music, and everything else that you've accomplished, Noel, but it's like so many of the songs seem poignant today, just like Nukes Are Nuts. And I love the story that you tell within this, during the song. And it's like going, okay, sure, it's kind of a laughable statement to approach that. But also, as you found out when you went to their website, okay, it's legit also.
Yeah, I made friends with some people up in Santa Barbara at the Nuclear Age Foundation, Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. And so when I got the request, I thought, well, that's kind of a cheeky way to abolish nuclear weapons around the world, is to say that they're nuts. But then I got thinking about squirrels and how they bury their nuts, in the springtime, and so they can dig them up in the wintertime and have something to eat. And I thought, wow, that's what we're doing with our nuclear weapons. We're burying them underground. And then one thing led to another. But I couldn't justify dismissing it as lightly as saying nukes are nuts. But when I went on the website, they had several very heavy hitters saying those words, including Desmond Tutu, and that was the one that blew me away. And I realized, yes, this is a global concern, and if you have to say it that light to get under somebody's defensive radar, then say it.
Well, and I've got to bring this up too, Noel, to where I thought it was so impressive that Paul Newman, that some salad dressing actually drove you to approach this whole project. You got to tell our audience about this.
Okay, but it wasn't the salad dressing, okay? It was the pizza. Come on.
Okay, well, it's still Paul Newman brand.
It was. I was standing in the frozen food department, as I've said, and there was Newman's Pizza, and on it said 100% profits to charity. And I thought, wow, that is a great concept. Now, I've been in the business for, as you know, 50 or 60 years, and I looked at all of the recordings I've made, all of the songs that I've written, and I realized that I get paid for being a performer. I mean, it's put my kids through school. I get paid for being a songwriter. It's put my kids through school. I get paid for royalties on the sales of record, on the sale. And so at some point I'm thinking, okay, look, how much does it cost to make a CD? And CDs are not all that popular anymore, but I tend to look at this particular CD, the Just Causes CD, as kind of a party favor that you would get at a benefit dinner. Mm-hmm. So you're attending a benefit dinner for 15 charities, okay, and you get this CD because I'm just deducting the amount it costs to manufacture it, promote it, put it together, graphics, whatever. And then above that, everything goes to the charities at about the rate of between 30 and 50 cents a charity for each one of them that's sold. Wow. That's 15 charities. And as soon as I make my nut, as soon as I make the total production cost, then that amount will even go up higher. So, I'd like to call Newman's actually, and one, thank them for the inspiration, and two, find out how they keep track of the auditing, because it gets pretty complex after a while. For instance, how do you measure in a song's life the digital downloads?
Right.
Do you give the profit of that particular song, or do you just take them all, divide them by 15 and send them out? I think that's probably what I'll resort to, because I haven't got the wherewithal and the auditing magic to be able to discern otherwise.
Well, what an impressive way to approach it, though, and also that was a catalyst for you to jump into Just Causes. I've got to bring this up, just not to embarrass you, but back in the day, with Peter, Paul, and Mary, you guys did perform at the event where Martin Luther King spoke the "I Have a Dream" speech, and what a prolific time to be there. And then with all that you've accomplished also in your solo career, some people may not realize that you wrote the wedding song. And as I told you before we started the interview, I've butchered your song a number of times at weddings that I've played. And but even with that, Noel, you have that music, it's funding Public Domain Foundation.
Yes. And the reason that it's funding Public Domain, which in turn funds Music to Life, which is an activist, artist, singer-songwriter support program, is that I really couldn't claim ownership of the tune. I mean, sure, I'm pleased to have been the first person to perform it, but I was asked by Peter to bless his wedding with a song, and I knew I did not have that kind of authority, even though I'd gone through quite a spiritual experience in the late 60s, early 70s. But I knew where I could get a blessing. And so I said, and the prayer was, for those of you that don't usually, how would you, capital Y, manifest yourself at Peter's wedding? And the lyrics just came pouring out. I am now to be among you, the calling of your hearts. Rest assured this troubadour is acting on my part. The union of your spirits has caused me to remain. So everything was in first person. But when I got to the motel before the wedding and I'm rehearsing it, my wife says, they're not going to understand, because I had just gone through, as I said, a pretty heavy spiritual experience. They're going to think you're announcing yourself as the second coming. I am now to be among you. So I changed the pronoun. And most people know it as he is now to be among you. But really, to get the true spirit of the song, to sing it as I am now to be among you and take yourself out of the equation and just let it flow through you. Anyway, that was a lesson to me. And when it came time to assign it on a record, because a record wants a track on a record wants the author, the composer, the publishing company, and all of that. And if you don't have it, then there's going to be a new Porsche in the parking lot next Thursday because they didn't have to dispense the money.
Right.
So I thought, well, that's not really fair. So I started the Public Domain Foundation, which, took in it's probably over 2 million now, and it has dispensed money not only to Music to Life, the organization I told you about, but to Oxfam, to a small church in Alabama. I mean, it was really great to be able to distribute the money in much the same way that I got the proceeds to begin with, or the words to begin with.
Right. What an inspiration. Well, and it's amazing to me too, Noel, looking at your career, starting out in high school bands and everything, and then, making the leap to New York at such a young age and forming Peter, Paul, and Mary. And then now, it's like you're in your 80s now, which is hard to believe. And you're just as prolific and doing more things. You're not slowing down at all musically or with your creativity.
Well, I'm a cathartic kind of writer. I mean, I suppose if I was a professional songwriter, I would have every Thursday from 9 to 12 in a studio. But I usually write, and I think the album Just Causes is a good evidence of that. I just write in response to what I see needs to be commented on, and I don't feel that anybody's doing it in quite the way that I see it. So I bring my perspective to whatever. But I'm definitely slowing down. I'm not in retirement yet, and as long as there's something out there to comment on, well, you'll probably going to get that, along with a vocal and maybe a point of view. But the new material is still coming. I'm probably doing a little more co-writing than I have in the past, acting like a producer in some cases. Somebody brings me a song and I say, that's a really great song, but if it had this verse or this bridge or this treatment or this intro, and then by the time I finished, it turns out that we've written the song together, and I'm putting it into an album for next November, at least, if everything goes according to plan, called Faz. The album is called Faz, Now and Then. And the term Faz was coined on a Peter, Paul, and Mary tour with the Dave Brubeck Quartet, where we were doing the Glazer rewrite of St. Matthew's Passion. I don't know if you remember the song. Mm-hmm. Because all men are brothers, wherever men may be. We did that with the Brubeck Quartet, not only for Brubeck on Columbia, but also in performance. And jazz players, as a rule, tend to think of folk music as a four-chord phenomenon and not worth paying attention to. So Paul Desmond was on stage, and he had to bring us up so we could play this song together. And he said, we're going to bring some people up on stage now. I don't know whether to call it Faz or Joke.
Oh my gosh!
A combination of folk and jazz, and we knew which term he would have preferred, but Faz stayed with me. So this next album will be kind of a revelation of how some chords. See, here's an A, and here's an A major seventh.
Oh yes,
It's a subtle difference, but it's got some color to it. And I tend to use color chords a lot in the songs that I write. So this will be an album of folk combined with jazz.
Oh my gosh, so amazing. Well, I want to make sure also know, the best, with your social media, website, and everything else for our viewers to get a copy of Just Causes, also to add it to their playlist, to keep up with you and what you and Peter are going to be doing. Where should they go?
Well, there's the peterpaulandmary.com, of course, which, keeps updating the schedule because the schedule keeps updating, as a result of the pandemic. Then there's noelpaulstookey.com, where you can also get a link to the Peter, Paul, and Mary site. And also, the one site that I think would really tickle people is the www.rockypeter.com. revolution1x1.org, because it not only has a great video in there that was put together by my friend David Snyder, but it also offers the viewer an opportunity to get a free button and join the revolution, which we're going to win, ultimately one by one. It's each of our responsibility to be a good neighbor to each other.
It's just incredible. What a great album. Noel Paul Stookey, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, Noel, and talking about Just Causes, your new album, which is helping so many causes, and your music continues to be a gift. Thank you for coming on the Rock and Review.
Thank you very much, Eric. And thank you, KC, for the man behind the scene work. I loved being here with you.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.